Hello and welcome back to another episode of You Want to Do What. Today we've got David Newns on, and he's an entrepreneur and investor. Hi, David.
Hi, Daniel. How are you?
Yeah, good mate. The sun is shining, although it did actually snow here this morning, so it's a bit of a weird one.
Yeah, I'm actually in Switzerland at the moment, and it's just started. It's literally not snowed here for 6 weeks, so all the skiers and snowboarders are not happy. They're more on the pub than they are on the slopes. So
Should we jump straight in, David? Do you want to just tell everyone a bit about what you do?
yeah, I mean, today basically, I'm an entrepreneur. I invest in disruptive startups all over Europe. My passion is like growth and disruption. So I love spending my time with founders that are really trying to kind of disrupt the status quo and really kind of play bigger than they are really.
So tell us a bit about your career journey from where you started to where you are now. What was that like? What did you?
So I grew up in Blackpool, which is quite a deprived area in the UK. It's on the sort of west coast. It was always quite good fun as a kid though, because you have things like the pleasure beach and stuff. But what really lacked in where I was is sort of people that inspired me. I didn't really find those people there. And I think that's a big part of for me about kind of what I look for in people and kind of what gets me up in the morning. But yeah, so I started in Blackpool, went to a rough secondary school. I really saw some interesting things in terms of poverty and some of my friendship groups. And I guess really that was the thing that really pushed me to try and do something different. And it really showed me what almost like what I didn't want, and therefore really gave me that energy to do something different. So when I was in my last year of school, I did some work experience at this IT company, and that was really the first thing. I went, wow, this is really cool. I can like work and I can earn some money. So when I left school, I actually went to work with this company full time. So yeah, I literally went straight from school to a really cool job in IT.
Oh wow. So what did you do after that? So you went into the world of IT, and then how did that kind of progress?
Yeah, well, I think, look, I was, always wanting to learn more. And I think after a lot of reflection, sort of over my whole career, actually learning stuff is the thing that really gets me inspired and out of bed. And it's not been obvious to me for a long time. That's what it is. And I think if I now go back to then, learning about what it's like to be like in a company and actually have customers and also learning all my IT skills. At the time I was a bit of an IT geek, I guess, is probably the best way of explaining it. I was pushing myself to do more all the time and learn more and be more and so on. So then I went into another job in IT, and then I met a guy called Chris Lord at flying school. I was learning to fly.
Very cool.
And yeah, Blackpool actually had an airport. Nobody ever used it, but it did. So I thought, might as well try and fly. And that was really my first step into quitting my job and working with him in his family business. And basically we turned his business around together as an engineering business, which is completely different from anything I'd ever done before. And again, I think looking back, it's all about this learning new stuff piece for me. And now we're still in the business today. It's a great business, and that was my first step, I guess, into the world of being an entrepreneur, I guess.
So that's quite nice. That leads us on to our question that we always ask is your opinion on university versus going straight into work. What's your take on that, and how do you think university sort of fits into our modern world?
I think quite interesting is when I was actually in the IT company, I was doing a lot of IT training, and I used to train the lecturers at Salford University on computers. So
Oh wow.
I actually have been inside university, although not as a student, which was pretty cool. Look, I think universities are a massive part of our cultural DNA, especially in the UK and the US. And I think there's definitely a real challenge behind the value and the role they play in modern society. I think it really is exactly like you would look at a really incumbent company, let's say the Ford Motor Company or whatever. They really struggle to kind of innovate and do things differently because they're so ingrained in the way they think about the world. And I think it's exactly the same in universities. And I think the challenge now, and students are really looking at it saying, what is the kind of the cost versus the reward? And ultimately, it all should be driven really from employability and what employers see in university degrees. And that is clearly changing now with some, even some of the big four now are saying, well, actually, is a university degree necessary? Should, from a diversity perspective, should we be looking for people from different backgrounds and different views of the world? And I think, I think university needs to evolve significantly, and it needs to be much more about creating skills that are for jobs of the future. If you're a creator, do you go to university and learn how to be a creator or not, right? It's quite interesting.
I think we've been really lucky to have quite a few founders on here and entrepreneurs like yourself, and just asking them, what do you value when you look to employ someone? And I could probably count on one hand people that have said, I really value a university degree still in this day and age, because I think the internet has provided so much opportunity to go out and learn. Like you said, you love learning. The internet is an amazing place to actually go and learn new skills, go and try things. You can actually build skills that are more valuable than a degree now.
Absolutely. And I think that's, it's almost empowering people to learn themselves. And it's easy to become an entrepreneur yourself now and build businesses and so on. So people are getting all these life skills just because probably they're not getting it from university. And, literally I'm the same. The last time I looked at anyone's CV and looked at their education section at all, I can't remember it, to be honest. And sometimes someone, after I've employed them goes, oh yeah, well, I got a first from Oxford or something. I literally would never have known until they told me after they started working for me.
Yeah.
And it's quite impressive still. Oh, that's really cool. But I'm actually quite pleased that it didn't actually influence my hiring decision.
So what do you actually look for when you get CVs in? And do you think CVs are the best way to still be hiring nowadays with things like, online portfolios, personal brands on things like LinkedIn? Does a CV still play a crucial role for you?
Much less now, right? I mean, look, I think, these days, LinkedIn is probably the right platform to kind of put who you are out to the world. And I think, what's really interesting about LinkedIn is it's not just your facts about what you've done and your experience, but almost like the posts you write, the content you're creating, the stuff that you like, says a lot more about you than, what your last 5 jobs were. And that's really, really interesting. So I always look at people's LinkedIn profiles versus a CV. It's much more, to me, it gives me much more of a picture of who they are.
So you said you helped a friend turn around his engineering company, and it's still a thriving company. From there, how did you sort of go into looking and investing into other companies?
Well, but first of all, so after then, we actually founded a business together in vaping. We were one of the first vaping businesses in the UK.
Oh, wow.
And we went through an amazing journey with that business where we literally found these products in China, in this big trade show, which is the most amazing experience. You can literally buy anything from, let's say, sex toys to vaping. Whatever you want to buy, you can buy.
Quite a variety.
Yeah, literally. And we went with that mindset, right? Let's go and find something interesting. And that was a way we explored. And to cut a long story short, we raised some venture capital money, which was super difficult, and taught me a lot about how difficult it is to raise funds and almost that kind of closed club network, which I really hate. From kind of investors and founders. And we sold that business to a big FTSE listed company in 2012. Then we did the whole thing again and did another vaping business and sold that to another big listed business. Wow. And that kind of gave us our first wealth creation events, I guess, to be able to then start investing in companies, which we started doing in 2012 when we sold the first business. So we've got a portfolio now of personal investments of about 30 different companies. And it's really amazing. I mean, the most successful is a business called Super Awesome, which was created to make the internet safe for kids. And they sold that to Epic Games, the makers of Fortnite, last year.
Wow.
Yeah, I was one of the first investors in that business, which is really cool. And you get the ones that go wrong as well, which is fine. It's part of the portfolio approach. But yeah, no, I absolutely love it. I love just being around founders and growth and kind of helping them and supporting them.
That's really cool. But as an investor now, do you look for certain things? Do you stick to a certain kind of industry, or as somebody that likes to learn about lots of different things, are you quite happy to jump into lots of different bits and bobs?
I love doing lots of different stuff, right? And it actually was a massive change of how to change my mind, going from running a business to then investing in lots of stuff where to flick between completely different, industries, like from one 30-minute call to another. And actually, I found it tough initially, but now I find it super rewarding because it makes your brain like really kind of, supple, I guess is the right word. And in terms of like what I look for, what's really, really interesting, and I've really kind of concluded on it recently, is most of the founders that I invest in and most of the founders that come to see me are all on a mission in a way to kind of change their own outlook on life or their own success. They've come from somewhere and they want to get somewhere else. For me, it was how do I go from Blackpool to being successful, right? And they've all got this drive to kind of make that change. And one of the things, as a dad now, I'm often worried about, my own son, and will he have that drive to really want to change his future or not? And actually, it's an interesting topic a lot of us are talking about now at school, in the school playground, let's say.
Yeah, I guess it's, you came from that area which you said was slightly deprived, and it gave you that drive. I guess it's interesting now, you've been successful, so your son won't have that same environment that he grew up in. It'll be very much different for him. So yeah, how do you address that? I guess that's quite a tough question.
It's a big question, honestly. I'm talking to loads of people about it at the moment.
Yeah.
And there's no real answer, because at the end of the day, you create a lifestyle that you love, and, we're kind of benefiting from our success. And, what does that mean for our kids and stuff? So it is super difficult. I mean, what I do love, though, is I love investing in entrepreneurs that want to also make that change.
Yeah.
And you don't see that many entrepreneurs that have come from really successful backgrounds, actually. I don't think would be my
yeah, I think you're right.
Besides the financial impact in these companies, what is an entrepreneur actually does for these companies?
So I think it's vision and leadership. I think a great entrepreneur has an amazing vision of what they're trying to do. They can communicate that vision to investors, different stakeholders, people they want to join the team, customers. And then they can be an amazing leader to be able to lead those people, and whether that is customers, investors, employees, whatever, to the vision they want that they've articulated. So it's that vision, communication and passion, and then leadership.
For somebody sort of listening along and maybe starting out in their career journey, as somebody that's hired people into their business, is there something that really always stands out for you? Maybe it be a skill set or something somebody's done to say, oh, actually, I'd really love that person at my company.
It's really interesting. I like entrepreneurs that have almost had a bit of a side hustle. So not entrepreneurs, people are looking to join our company. They've had a side hustle. So we hired this guy recently who's built this little small eyewear business with glasses and really cool, funky looking glasses online. And actually what he learned through that process of kind of how to source products, like quality standards, the regulations, setting up an online store, digital marketing, all these things, actually thought, bloody hell, that is really cool. One, because actually you were made to learn all that stuff, right? You didn't know any of that. You went out, you learned it, you actually built this thing. If it was successful, it doesn't really matter to me. It's more that the kind of agility to kind of learn new things, adopt, and kind of execute, I think was really powerful.
Yeah, no, really interesting. And what kind of personality traits do you think you see in yourself and maybe some other entrepreneurs that help you to be successful?
I think it is going back to this kind of vision and passion piece we just spoke about. And, ironically, you don't learn that in university, right? And it has to come from somewhere, which I think is the other point we were making about where does my vision and passion come from? I think it comes from my background, and it might come from different places for different people. But it needs to come from somewhere. You can't sort of authentically create a vision and a passion, it without having somewhere it came from. So I think that's what I really see in people.
And what would be the biggest positive from, number one, being an entrepreneur and running your own company, and then the biggest positive to being an investor?
Look, I think the thing about an entrepreneur is you get to create your own destiny. You can kind of like build your castle. And it's so exciting, and it's ups and downs. It's the emotional roller coaster, and you kind of the core skill, I think, of an entrepreneur is resilience. There's so many no's, there's so many knockbacks. The ability to kind of get up, keep going. The positive side of that is you really create this amazing. You can create your own destiny. The negative side is a lot of mental health impacts to that, which I think are a lot not talked about in being an entrepreneur, and people just talk about the good stuff. There's a lot of bad stuff. And I think so that for me is that from an entrepreneur perspective. As an investor, I think I absolutely love spending time and getting kind of infused with people's energy, ideas, excitement, passion, and I find that really rewarding.
You touched on something there. It's obviously being self-employed. It's as far as you want to take it. I can imagine the entrepreneur world can also be slightly addictive to an extent. And it is as far as you want to take it, but how do you try and switch off from that work world?
It's tough, right? Because it becomes your life, and it's you. I think if you're an authentic entrepreneur, you are, what you do is a thing about your life, and the more you can be authentic and the more you can bring your true DNA to what you do and your true feelings, I think you can be way more successful and you can connect with people better as well. So I think that's really important. But then turning off from that, how do you turn off if you're being his true self and in everything you do, being an entrepreneur? Turning it off is practically impossible, I suspect.
And you mentioned you've gone through fundraising and how hard that can be. Have you got any sort of maybe tips or advice for anyone? It can be, I assume, massively mentally draining and an incredibly stressful time. How did you learn to deal with that?
I think honestly, having a business partner was super helpful for me. Somebody else that I could kind of talk to. Nobody's 100% all the time, right? So if you've got a partner, you can kind of go, well, I'm on a good day, you're not on a good day. You take the mantle, and if you're great partners, one can run and then the other can follow, and then you can swap. And I think this for me was a core part of why we're able to achieve what we did. So I think, I wouldn't underestimate the opportunity to kind of work with someone who's really like-minded, that you can kind of have that relationship with.
If you go back to that boy in Blackpool, what would be maybe a skill or some advice you would give him, knowing what you've learned over these years?
I think resilience, right? I think this is, something I spent a lot of time thinking about, recently. We live in a world where, it's getting more complicated, much more is expected of us, much more challenges around, cost of living, what's, the employability. The world's changing a lot in terms of what's going on with Ukraine and the whole deglobalization of the world. All these things, mean that as an individual, you need to be kind of way more resilient than I think you've ever had to be in your entire life. You're expected to be always on all the time, answer emails. When you're fundraising, there's a lot of no's, and you've kind of got to sell a vision. So I think resilience is something I think is something I go back and say that is the thing that really pushes you through these things. And ironically, I think I built that resilience when I lived in Blackpool, seeing the different things I saw and was exposed to. That was where I started to learn about resilience, but I didn't know it at the time, right?
Mm-hmm. When you go in and you look for these investments or they come to you, is there anything in particular? I know you mentioned you're someone that's sort of looking to really make a change, but is there anything actually that you look for business wise where you're like, oh, this is going to be a really good investment? Or is it still down to the character of the entrepreneur founding the business?
I think it's 90% the founder, 10%. It has to be a business model that can work, fundamentally. And that might not be provable now, but it might be something that is an idea, but you've got to have something that fundamentally has a business model that can work eventually. So a good example of that not being the case, maybe like WeWork, for example, where you go fundamentally buying long-term leases and selling them on a short-term basis is fundamentally flawed business model. That's an example of it not being true, for example.
And would you still do it all again, knowing everything you know now?
Yeah, absolutely. I think when you're at the other side of something, it's easier to look back and go, oh, it's all wonderful, and definitely do it again. And I think one of the problems you have as an entrepreneur, you kind of, when people ask you to recall the story, you say all the good bits, and you purposely ignore or even want to forget the challenges, right? Because it's everyone goes, oh, you're an entrepreneur, it must be amazing, right? It's a roller coaster. It's a really, really up and down roller coaster. And every entrepreneur I've talked to who's come out the other side and been really successful always says that. I don't think I've met one that's gone, it was a doddle, as a walk in the park. It's tough. But I would definitely do it again.
Well, David, thank you so much for your time. It's been a real pleasure to hear all about your story so far, and love your approach to it all.
Cheers, Daniel. Cheers, Tom.
Thank you. Where can people maybe find you, reach out, and see what you're up to?
Yeah, just Google David Newns on LinkedIn, and that's probably the best place to have a look and sort of look at my posts. And please connect with me on there; it'd be great.
Brilliant. Thanks, David.
Thank you.